People often ask if hypnosis is mind control. And the answer is absolutely yes. But here's the profound twist, maybe not what you expect. It's not about external manipulation. It's actually your own intrinsic ability to control your own mind.
Right.
So for those of you already kind of exploring personal development, mind management, this deep dive offers a really unique distillation of exactly that.
Yeah, it's a way to harness what's already there.
Exactly.
Oh.
Our mission today is really to uncover how we can better manage our subconscious mind, to unlock true abundance, peace, and that sense of personal freedom.
And we're drawing on some powerful insights here from a master hypnotherapist, NLP trainer, and coach. Really practical strategies for reprogramming those beliefs that shape our reality.
Which is so key because, as you said, many of us feel profoundly stuck.
We do. We grapple with challenges, financially, physically, emotionally in our relationships. And often, like our source material from Jim Curtis really emphasizes, this stems from these deeply ingrained mind traps.
Mind traps? That sounds intriguing.
They are. Unseen patterns really in our subconscious that kind of dictate our experience without us even realizing it half the time.
Okay. So for you, our listener, this is about becoming really well-informed, kind of cutting through the noise to grasp these deep concepts that can honestly radically change your daily experience.
Exactly. We'll unpack these common mind traps. We'll delve into the power of self-hypnosis, affirmations.
And discover how just refocusing on the outcomes you want can dramatically shift things.
It really can.
All right, let's dive in. Okay, so let's unpack this core idea first. Jim Curtis argues our current reality is built entirely on our programming and beliefs. That sounds huge. What does that really mean in practice?
It's a massive realization, truly. We tend to think our reality is, fixed, like it's just the way things are.
Right, set in stone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what our expert, Jim, and the source material make incredibly clear is that this reality is actually, it's a construct.
A construct.
Yeah. Built entirely on all our past programming, everything we've experienced, absorbed, been told, especially from childhood onwards. This programming shapes our beliefs.
Okay.
And those beliefs then dictate how we see things, how we feel about them, how we're affected by the world around us.
It's like the lens we see everything through.
Precisely. And the core insight here, the really powerful part, is that if we built this programming, if we were the architects of this mental structure,
You can change it.
then we absolutely have the power to change it.
Yes.
And by changing that internal programming, we can intentionally start to manifest a different external reality.
Wow. So everyone's living their own unique reality
Yeah.
based on their programming.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
A construct based on their individual way of seeing, feeling, reacting. Which means, and this is key, if you feel trapped, you likely played a role in creating that trap through your programming. And crucially, you have the power to change it. It shifts the focus from blaming external stuff
Right.
to understanding and mastering your own internal world.
That completely reframes things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If we're the architects, then our limitations aren't permanent walls. They're more like blueprints we can actually revive.
Exactly. Well put.
And one of the most common flaws, I guess, in those blueprints is what you mentioned earlier, the negativity bias. How does this first mind trap show up day to day?
Oh, the negativity bias. It's everywhere. It's our inherent tendency to just zoom in on negative comments or experiences, even when we're surrounded by overwhelmingly positive stuff.
Okay, give me an example.
Think social media, right? You post something, you get 1,000 genuinely positive comments, praise, support, love, whatever.
Yeah, feels good.
Right. But then that one single negative remark pops up. What happens?
You fixate on that one. Forget the 1,000 others.
Exactly. Almost instinctively, you obsess over it. And this bias keeps us trapped. It convinces us that our issues are bigger than they are, almost insurmountable. It whispers, this one negative thing, that's the real truth about you, and you're stuck.
Ugh, yeah, I recognize that pattern.
So the immediate solution, the very first step to breaking free, is just becoming aware that this bias exists, just knowing it's a thing.
Awareness is key.
It is. Once you recognize it, you can consciously choose to redirect your focus. Shift it back to the positive, to the 99.9% of good stuff. And that conscious shift, it fundamentally changes how you see your problems and, importantly, your ability to solve them.
Okay, so our minds tend to grab onto the negative. How does that connect with the idea that our brain actively seeks out what it already believes? Like it's looking for proof.
Yeah, that leads us straight into mind trap number 2, confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias, okay.
Our brains have this amazing filtering system called the reticular activating system, or RAS.
RAS, got it.
And this system is constantly working, mostly unconsciously, to confirm our existing beliefs, the ones embedded by our programming.
So it filters reality to match our beliefs.
In a way, yes. It highlights things that align with what we already think is true. So if you want to uncover your own confirmation biases, just ask yourself this simple question. What results am I consistently creating in my life right now?
What results am I creating?
Yeah. Those results, they're a direct reflection of what your RAS is confirming for you based on your underlying beliefs.
Okay, so what's a common example? Especially thinking about relationships, like you mentioned.
A really pervasive one, especially in relationships, is that deep-seated belief, I'm not good enough, or maybe I'm not lovable.
Yeah, that's a heavy one for many people.
It really is. And if that's your core programming, your confirmation bias will likely lead you to consistently find partners or situations that confirm it. You might end up with someone who gives inconsistent affection or someone who's hot and cold.
Or avoids commitment altogether.
Exactly. And you're left wondering, why can't I find a healthy, loving partner? Your RAS is subtly guiding you towards situations that match the I'm not lovable script.
Wow. Okay, but what happens if someone with that programming actually does find a healthy relationship?
Now here's the really counterintuitive part. When you encounter a genuinely healthy, consistent, loving relationship, if your programming is used to chaos, it can actually feel, wow,
Boring.
boring. Exactly. Your nervous system might be conditioned, maybe from childhood experiences with volatility, yelling, drama, intense makeups, to interpret that emotional roller coaster as passion or love.
So chaos feels like normal or even exciting.
Right. You might have even craved those peaks and valleys, the uncertainty, that constant edge, thinking that volatility meant depth or real connection. But it actually keeps your nervous system on high alert, which isn't healthy long term.
So consistency feels dull in comparison.
It can initially, but the truth is consistency and safety, someone who actually follows up, calls when they say they will, shows up reliably, that isn't boring at all. It's beautiful. It's in that secure space that you can finally be truly vulnerable, build real connection, and allow for genuine expansion and abundance in your life. That constant hot and cold dynamic. It prevents growth and keeps your nervous system wired.
That resonates so deeply with me. My own experience, really for almost 2 decades, was often marked by that kind of relationship chaos. And it wasn't about blaming anyone else. I was definitely part of that dynamic. But I realized I couldn't seem to attract stability until I started working on healing my own nervous system, creating that internal sense of calm first.
That's a huge insight.
It felt like the internal healing started manifesting externally. So many of us stay trapped, suffering, because that ingrained programming just keeps running the show. Your point that programming equals reality. That's powerful. It's easy to miss when you're stuck in the loop.
It really is. The connection is direct.
Okay, moving on. Here's another big mind trap one many of us hit, maybe especially in business, but honestly it applies everywhere. The sunk cost fallacy. What's that about?
Ugh, the sunk cost fallacy. It's incredibly common and sneaky. At its heart, it's that belief that whispers, I've invested so much time, energy, money, emotion into this, I just can't let it go now.
Right. Even if it's clearly not working anymore.
Precisely. It's that gut feeling when you've poured yourself into something, a relationship, a business, a project, and the thought of walking away feels like an unbearable loss. Like all that investment was for nothing.
You see it all the time.
All the time. People clinging to a 2-year relationship that's making them miserable, or a business owner pouring more and more money into a venture that's clearly failing.
Throwing good money after bad.
Exactly, or good time after bad. The impact is huge. It leads to prolonged suffering, prolonged pain, because you just can't bring yourself to cut your losses.
And the result later is often regret.
Deep regret. I wish I'd gotten out earlier. Why did I stick with it so long? The challenge with the sunk cost fallacy is that breaking free takes immense self-awareness and courage.
Yeah, it's hard to admit it's time to change course.
It really is, to objectively look at it and say, despite everything I've poured into this, it's not serving me anymore and it's time to pivot. That's one of the toughest traps to escape. But just recognizing it, naming it, that's the critical first step towards freedom.
That definitely takes courage. Okay, and the final mind trap you mentioned, which I find particularly fascinating because it seems so tied up with our identity, is the backfire effect. Can you break that one down?
Yes, the backfire effect. It's arguably one of the most stubborn mind traps, precisely because it's so tangled up with our sense of self, our identity.
Okay, so how does it work?
Here's the definition. When something is part of your core identity, a belief you hold as fundamentally true about yourself or the world, and that belief gets challenged, maybe with an alternative truth or a different perspective,
Yeah.
your immediate, often unconscious reaction is to double down on your original belief. You don't just hold on to it, you fight for it even more fiercely.
Why? Why? Fight harder.
Because letting go of that belief feels like a part of your identity is actually crumbling. It feels threatening, like losing a piece of who you are.
So it feels like a personal attack almost.
Exactly. And the impact, of course, is that it keeps you profoundly stuck in your current reality. It slams the door on growth, new perspectives, and the possibility of actually shifting your experience.
Can you share an example from your own experience? You mentioned hypno-realizations.
Absolutely. I've had some significant ones. One big one was around my career. I've built very successful businesses, but always within the private equity or venture capital world.
Okay.
My deeply ingrained belief, my backfire effect in action, was that this was the only way to achieve substantial success, high earnings, that feeling of worthiness.
Even if it wasn't making you happy.
Right. Even though I was often deeply unhappy, working insane hours, like 80-hour weeks, and my health was suffering because of it. When I saw other people succeeding, really thriving outside that specific model,
Oh, yeah.
my default reaction was to double down. I'd make excuses, rationalize it. Oh, they have some special skill I don't, or their situation is different. Anything rather than questioning my rigid belief that my way was the only way. It took a genuine hypno-realization stepping outside that belief to start breaking free.
And you had another one related to your health.
Yes, a major one. For years, I battled this mysterious, debilitating spinal condition. It caused chronic pain, significantly impacted my mobility. I was even in a wheelchair at times.
Wow.
Yeah. It involved a lesion on my spinal cord, causing severe nerve damage, stiffness, muscle spasms. Even now, I still walk with a noticeable limp.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
It was. And when I'd hear about or witness people experiencing seemingly miraculous healings, maybe at events like Joe Dispenza's retreats,
Mm-hmm.
my backfire effect kicked right in. My thought was immediately, no, their condition isn't like mine. What I have is unique. It's untreatable.
So you dismissed their success because it didn't fit your belief about your own situation.
Exactly. It was a classic backfire effect, protecting my identity as someone with this unique, untreatable condition, even though it kept me stuck and prevented me from exploring solutions that were clearly helping others.
That sounds incredibly challenging, especially dealing with it without a clear diagnosis at first. This wasn't like an injury, it just developed.
That's right. It was undiagnosed for a long time, and anyone who's gone through that knows the deep anxiety that comes with searching for a name, almost wanting a diagnosis, even a scary one, just to have an answer, a path forward.
Yeah, the uncertainty is brutal.
It really is. It started subtly. One day, I just woke up, got in the shower, and realized I couldn't feel my left foot. Then the numbness started creeping up my leg.
Oh, wow.
An MRI eventually showed a tumor or a lesion on my spinal cord, but the cause was still unclear. Slowly, over about a year, the numbness spread up to my waist, my legs got weaker, and then this excruciating chronic nerve pain set in. Constant stiffness, the limp. My whole system felt out of alignment.
So what was the turning point? What led you towards exploring hypnosis for this?
The turning point was noticing these moments where the pain would just disappear, completely vanish.
Really? What triggered that?
It sounds almost too simple, but it was states like happiness, joy, genuine laughter, gratitude. When those positive emotions flooded my system, releasing oxytocins and other neurochemicals, the pain would literally recede. Sometimes I wouldn't even need medication.
That's incredible.
It was. Or I'd go to a retreat, something focused on connecting to a higher power, my true self. You know? And by the end of the retreat, I could often walk almost perfectly with no pain.
Wow.
So that got me asking the crucial question. How do I consciously speak to whatever part of me is controlling this pain response? Beyond prayer, the closest thing I found that seemed to directly address that subconscious control was hypnosis.
Accessing a different state of mind.
Exactly. I realized if I could get into a theta brainwave state, that deep trance state where you can connect more directly with the subconscious, the quantum field, whatever you want to call it, maybe I could start making changes to those underlying programs, the parts controlling things I wasn't even consciously aware of.
So that whole journey really solidified your belief in the mind-body connection, that the mind is directly controlling or at least profoundly influencing the nervous system and our physical health.
100%. Absolutely. The mind is controlling and influencing the nervous system, no doubt in my mind. Now, whether my thinking caused the initial condition, that's hard to say definitively,
Sure.
but I deeply believe that illness often accumulates through things like emotional stagnation, maybe from a difficult childhood, unresolved trauma, or even, as some philosophies like Dolores Cannon's or Brian Weiss's work suggest, carrying energetic patterns, maybe karmic stuff, from past lives.
That's a deep concept.
It is. But the idea is that these deeply held energetic blockages can eventually manifest physically, often triggered by environmental factors or stress. And the flip side is we've seen miraculous recoveries happen when people consciously work to release that stagnant energy, things like sorrow, sadness, resentment, often through embracing forgiveness both of others and themselves. For me, when I started actively working on releasing my pain by processing those stored emotions, that's when my healing truly began to accelerate.
You mentioned this started around age 20, so you lived with this chronic pain for over 2 decades while simultaneously building these hyper-successful businesses, grinding out 60, 80 hours a week. It sounds like a contradiction of massive external achievement alongside internal suffering. Were you sort of stuffing the pain down, using work as validation?
Oh, absolutely. Precisely that. Those thoughts were always there under the surface. I'm not good enough. Something's wrong with me. My body's broken. So my response, my coping mechanism, was to focus intensely on what I was good at. Okay, body's a mess. Fine, let's crush it over here in business. I poured all my energy, my sense of self-worth, into external success.
To the point of neglecting other things, like therapy.
Exactly. I even neglected my physical therapy because I was so focused on work. That was my mind trap. I desperately needed to feel worthy, and building businesses seemed like the most direct path to getting that external validation.
It's a really common pattern, isn't it? People pour all their attention into the one area where they feel successful, trying to ignore or hide the other parts they feel ashamed of or not good enough in.
Yeah, compensating. So when you fully immersed yourself in learning hypnotherapy, what was the biggest aha moment for you? The thing that really catalyzed more healing and freedom physically and mentally?
The biggest aha, by far, was the profound realization that we can actually enter a state where we quiet down that critical part of our mind.
The inner critic, the analyzer. Yes, exactly. The part that's constantly judging, analyzing, projecting past failures onto the future. We can get it to take a back seat. And in that quieted state, we can begin to actively reframe past experiences, even, astonishingly, kind of relive them differently with a new emotional understanding.
Relive them. How does that work?
It's possible because our subconscious mind and our energy body, they don't really differentiate between time and space or even reality versus fantasy in the way our conscious mind does. They operate beyond those linear constraints.
Wow.
So this allows for really profound changes in our present and future selves simply by experiencing the desired emotion, the new perspective, while under hypnosis. It accesses a level that bypasses the critical filter. It was truly mind-blowing when I grasped that.
So you started applying this to yourself?
Immediately, first with therapists, then I learned self-hypnosis. And honestly, now I often bypass traditional meditation and go straight into self-hypnosis. It feels like a more direct route for me to that state of reprogramming and regulation.
That sounds incredibly powerful, like a direct line to emotional regulation and rewriting your internal code. So for someone listening who's new to this, maybe feels a bit intimidated, could you share a practical, maybe just a minute-long technique, something simple to quiet that critical mind and tap into a more positive, abundant state?
Absolutely. It's remarkably simple and surprisingly effective. Let's even guide you, our listener, through a very brief version right now. Are you ready?
Okay, let's do it.
All right. Just get comfortable wherever you are. All you need to do is take a nice deep breath in, and as you inhale, just look directly up towards your forehead, way up high. Hold your breath there for just a moment. And then as you exhale, gently release the breath and allow your eyes to close softly. Good. Now let's do that again. Take another deep breath in, looking all the way up into your forehead. Hold it. And then release the breath, letting your eyes drop all the way down, staying closed. One more time. Deep breath in, look all the way up. Hold and release. Eyes gently closed. Good. Now, with your eyes gently closed, just bring your awareness to my voice for a moment. Or, if you're doing this alone later, just notice all the different sounds you can hear around you all at once. Now, gently shift your attention to your right hand. Just notice your right hand. See if you can become aware of maybe a subtle tingling sensation in your fingertips. Just notice it. And as you feel that tingling perhaps growing in your right hand, gently allow that same sensation to extend over to your left hand. Feel that gentle energy, that tingling, maybe in both hands now, perhaps even spreading through your body. Now we'll gently count down from 5 to 1. Just know that with each number, you can allow yourself to go a little deeper into a state of relaxation, deepness, maybe even a light trance. So 5, letting go. 4, deeper now. 3, relaxing more. 2, almost there. And 1. Just take a moment here in this state of relaxation, deepness, complete trance. It's a place for rejuvenation. And in this quiet space, I invite you to just tell yourself the most empowering thing possible. And remember, the most empowering thing you can possibly tell yourself often begins with those 2 simple words. I am. Yes, I am is like the spell of creation. It's divinity itself, creation expressing. So whatever quality you want to embody right now, peace, abundance, wholeness, love, just affirm it silently. I am. And really try to feel the truth of it in your body. Just for a moment. Good. Feeling completely rejuvenated, completely empowered, perhaps sensing that energy of the universe flowing through you. Pure potential. And now you can gently begin to bring your awareness back up, counting up from 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Eyes gently opening, wide awake, fully present, back with us.
Wow. That's fascinating. It really does feel like a quick reset button.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. And it also feels like it trains your system, like you're reminding it, hey, I can regulate my emotions and I can consciously choose who I truly am. Those I am statements feel incredibly potent.
They really are.
During that exercise, things like, I am loved, I am whole, I am peace just popped right into my mind. It's amazing how quickly you can shift using that simple technique.
It truly is. It's so powerful because our critical mind, when it's constantly running the show, analyzing, scrutinizing, looking for problems, worrying about the future, it keeps us locked in stress, concern, often that feeling of lack.
Right.
But when we consciously quiet it down, release all that mental chatter, what's left underneath, it's our true essence. If you took away all the fear, the planning, the anxiety, the sadness, what would remain?
Love.
Exactly. For me, often it's simply I am enough, but it's also I am love, I am joy, I am abundance, I am expansion. These are the inherent uplifting qualities of our true selves, but they get buried under the noise.
So the critical mind isn't bad, it just gets overactive.
Precisely. It serves a necessary function. We need to process information, navigate the world. But when it becomes hyperactive, when our subconscious programming rules us instead of us consciously directing our subconscious, that's where the trouble starts.
And that's where hypnosis comes in.
That's exactly where it comes in. People ask, is hypnosis mind control? Many experts say no, perhaps to avoid negative connotations. But I say, absolutely, yes, it is mind control. But it's your ability to control your own mind.
The distinction is crucial.
It is. A good hypnotherapist is simply guiding you to access and change your own subconscious mind so that you are in the driver's seat, not the old programming. That's the most empowering part. You start having not just manifestations, but these profound realizations like understanding you're not separate from abundance, you are abundance. You're not just a wave, you're the entire ocean. You can truly embody what you desire without the anxiety, without the feeling of separation. That's the authentic feeling of wholeness.
Okay, so building on that powerful idea, what would you say is the most fundamental law, maybe the most powerful law of the universe that leverages this I am concept to help us actually create the reality we desire?
That's a deep question, and I believe the answer lies in the incredible power of those 2 words, I am.
Just I am.
Just I am. Thinkers like Neville Goddard really explored this, drawing from that biblical phrase, I am that I am. You find echoes of it in Deepak Chopra's work, in Buddhist and Vedic philosophies, across so many wisdom traditions. It's like the original spell, creation itself speaking.
The universe experiencing itself through us.
Exactly. So when we declare I am, we are literally invoking creative power. Because here's the key. What our identity, our core self believes we are, we inevitably have or experience in life. It's not really about what we want.
Wanting implies lack.
Precisely. Wanting implies searching outside yourself, feeling separate from it, but what you genuinely deeply believe you are, you manifest that every single time. It's that fundamental.
That's a really powerful and maybe slightly unsettling thought, especially when I think back to my own childhood. I know I used a lot of negative I am statements, both in my head and sometimes even saying them out loud. Things like, I am a horrible student, I am bad, I am dumb, I am slow, I am not good enough, I can't do that.
Wow.
And hearing you talk, it feels like those were literally self-fulfilling prophecies, spells, like you said, creating my reality based on those beliefs, not necessarily reflecting who I truly was, but certainly shaping what I experienced.
That's exactly it. That's precisely what you were manifesting. Your identity becomes deeply rooted in those core I am beliefs. And that identity in turn, dictates what you create, what shows up in your life. It's that direct. You just need to look around at your current circumstances. They often mirror those deep beliefs.
Yeah.
For me, growing up, some of my I am mantras were things like, I'm not good at math. I even had a teacher wrongly suggest I had slight dyslexia, and I carried that label for a while, saying, oh, I have slight dyslexia. It wasn't true. It's had zero impact since, but I adopted it.
We absorb these things so easily.
We do. We adopt so many of these I ams unconsciously. But here's the empowering part. It works both ways. You can also become aware of your positive I am programming. You can recognize, oh, actually, I have a really strong I am belief around my creativity, or I have a great I am for connecting with people. You can acknowledge where your programming is already serving you well.
Okay, so when we talk about creating our reality, people often mention the law of attraction. How does that relate to what you're calling the law of assumption based on these I am beliefs? Is there a link?
There's a crucial distinction and a vital link. The law of assumption is about what you assume to be true about yourself, your identity, your capabilities, what's possible for you.
Okay, the underlying beliefs.
Exactly. And I firmly believe the law of attraction, the idea of attracting what you desire, will never really work effectively or consistently until you start to recognize and consciously address what you're assuming to be true about yourself at that deeper level.
Why is that?
Because otherwise, you're operating with conflicting signals. You might be consciously trying to attract abundance or love or health.
Yeah.
But your underlying operating system, those deep-seated, often unexamined assumptions about what you're really capable of or what you truly deserve, they act as fundamental blocks. You're trying to run new software on an old, incompatible operating system, essentially. You're wondering why it's not working, but it's because the core assumptions haven't been updated.
That makes sense. But what if the evidence seems to contradict the positive assumption? Like, if you struggle in school, how do you genuinely assume I'm a great learner without feeling like you're just lying to yourself?
That's a fantastic question, and it highlights the perceived conflict. If all of the evidence pointed to you being a slow learner in a traditional school setting, it feels inauthentic to suddenly declare the opposite, right?
Right. It feels like denial.
But here's where we question the nature of truth and evidence. Are there really absolute lies or truths here? Maybe in that specific learning modality, the way school was structured, you didn't thrive. But were there other areas, like maybe mastering complex football plays, where you learned incredibly quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. Different context.
Exactly. So the deeper truth might be that you're actually a fantastic learner, just perhaps not in the way that specific system measured it. We tend to take one set of data, form a belief or assumption, and then feel like challenging that empirical evidence is dishonest.
But reality is subjective.
It's entirely subjective. There is no single absolute reality. It's like that line from The Matrix, there is no spoon. Think about money. It has immense value in our society, but it's literally worthless paper or digital bits on a desert island. Its value exists only because we collectively assume it does.
Good point.
Similarly, you are inherently worthy, inherently lovable, inherently capable. But your assumptions might be filtering your perception, blocking you from experiencing that truth. It's all shaped by your internal lens, your assumption.
Okay, embracing that subjectivity, that power of assumption.
Oh.
What would you say is the single biggest block that stops people from manifesting more of what they truly desire? More abundance, more joy, more connection.
In my experience observing myself and others, the biggest block is often the deeply held belief that you need to follow one specific particular path or avenue to get what you want.
Like there's only one way.
Exactly. The assumption that, for example, you must be in finance to make significant money. I mentioned working on the American stock exchange floor. I realized pretty quickly I wouldn't make big money there in that specific role. But that realization didn't mean I wasn't capable of making money. It just meant I needed to find a different avenue, a different expression of my capabilities. So whether it's more love, more money, more peace, the block is often believing there's only one prescribed route. The truth is, you can have what you desire by realizing reality is subjective, and you have the power to choose and create your own path, your own reality.
That's a really insightful answer, and it makes me want to turn the question back to you, if you don't mind sharing. What do you see as the biggest personal block that maybe keeps you from attracting more, manifesting more, raising your own frequency consistently?
Oh, that's a fair question, and it's definitely something I'm still consciously working on. For me, my biggest block is probably my tendency to take on too many things at once.
Spreading yourself too thin.
Exactly. I'll get excited about multiple projects, commit to them all, genuinely believing I can manage everything, and then find myself scrambling, maybe trying to find people to delegate to, feeling overwhelmed. It comes down to not fully committing to just one thing and going all in, at least for a focused period.
Even if you feel you can help with other
Yeah.
things.
Even if I feel capable, I recognize that I need to really dedicate myself to this one primary focus. By not doing that, by splintering my energy, everything suffers a little bit. And that absolutely impacts the energy available for manifestation. It dilutes the focus.
Oh, man, I can relate to that so much. It immediately brings me back to a private mastermind I did in Fiji. This was back in 2019 with Tony Robbins.
Wow. Okay.
And at the time, I really prided myself on being what I call the decathlete in life and business. You know, being pretty good at maybe 10 or 12 different things, juggling multiple projects, different revenue streams.
The multitasker extraordinaire.
Right. But honestly,
Yeah.
I felt like I was energetically drained all the time, constantly playing whack-a-mole, and ultimately feeling like maybe a 7 out of 10 on everything. Good, but not great anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Familiar feeling.
So my big question to Tony was basically, how do I make all these different things better? I feel like I've been stuck at this 7 out of 10 level for a decade.
And what did he say?
He just looked at me really intently, you know how he does, and asked this simple but profound question. He said, do you want to be a 7 out of 10 type of guy, or do you want to be a 10 out of 10?
Oof, direct.
Super direct. And of course I said 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
His advice was equally simple. You've got to learn to focus your energy, pick a couple of things, maybe just one initially, and go deep. Until you build the systems and the team to really scale those, you can't keep adding more unless you're happy being a 7 out of 10.
Powerful framing.
It really was. It took me a few years to fully implement it, but I started consciously shedding things, even big revenue streams, that were financially okay but just felt energetically draining. I decided to go all in on focusing on this show as my primary vehicle for impact.
And what happened?
Everything started to grow. The impact, the reach, the fulfillment. Now, it wasn't effortless. I want to be clear about that. There was definitely pain, some loss, grief even, in letting go of that old decathlete identity
Yeah.
to make space for a new, more focused one. It had its challenges, for sure, but ultimately, absolutely worth it.
And what Tony did there, asking you that specific question, do you want to be a 7 or a 10? That's a brilliant example of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, in action.
How so?
He didn't tell you what to do. He didn't give you a directive like, start splintering your energy, focus on the show.
Right, he didn't prescribe.
Exactly. Instead, he posed a question that forced you to think, to really consider the choice and the path you wanted. That empowers your own mind to find the answer and commit to it. It comes from within you, which makes it stick. That's the power of a well-placed question versus a simple directive.
That's a really interesting distinction. So what's the fundamental difference there in terms of communication impact between using questions versus directives, especially if you're trying to empower yourself or someone else?
It's absolutely fundamental. A directive, like if Tony had just told you what to do, you might have followed it out of respect for it, right?
Probably, yeah.
But it wouldn't have been truly your decision, not fully internalized. A question, however, like what could possibly be possible if you didn't keep doing all those things, makes your mind engage. It compels you to explore the possibilities yourself, leading to an internal realization, an aha moment that actually creates change.
It bypasses resistance somehow.
It often does. Think about compliments, for example. Sometimes people have trouble really receiving a compliment. If you just say directly, "You have great hair today," their critical mind might immediately jump in with, "No, I don't, they're just being nice," or "They're lying, I hate my hair today."
Yeah, deflection shields up.
Exactly. But if you frame it as a question like, "I wonder if you know how good your hair looks today," or "Did you know how amazing it is that you managed to arrive right on time?" It kind of sneaks past that critical filter. Because the subconscious mind loves questions. Its job is to find answers. So instead of rejecting the statement, it considers the question, do I know how good my hair looks? Or was it amazing I was on time? It allows them to actually consider the possibility and potentially accept the positive input.
So questions engage the subconscious directly.
Yes, they do. The subconscious answers questions, whether they're empowering ones, how can I achieve this, or disempowering ones, why does this always happen to me? So framing compliments or even suggestions as questions creates a kind of loophole for them to be received and reflected upon, leading to actual internal shifts. It's a classic NLP technique.
Can you give another example of phrasing?
Sure. You could start with something like, perhaps you already know, before offering the compliment or observation. The key is often to introduce a thought that engages curiosity before the core message and also to be specific. Instead of a broad, potentially overwhelming, "You're beautiful," maybe try, "Did you know that color you're wearing really makes your eyes sparkle?" It feels more targeted, less easily dismissed, and invites them to consider it.
That's a fantastic loophole for delivering positive feedback. Okay, shifting gears slightly. So many people listening are probably stuck in that state of constant stress, anxiety, maybe from their jobs, their lives, or just the sheer volume of information and comparison online. They're often in judgment mode, criticism, maybe even self-loathing. If someone finds themselves consistently feeling stressed and anxious, what's a practical way they can start to raise their frequency, shift their emotional state on a daily basis?
That's such a common state, isn't it? Operating in that high alert, high beta brainwave state, constantly scrolling, comparing, feeling on edge. The first step to shifting that is really about practicing emotional regulation.
Okay, how do you do that?
It starts with simply grounding yourself in the present, just pausing and realizing, okay, I'm here now in this present moment. That simple act of anchoring yourself helps you relax, even just a little, and immediately gives you access to more of your internal resources, more capability.
Just stepping out of the mental swirl.
Exactly. And from that slightly calmer place, you can ask yourself two really key questions. The first one is, what's true right now?
That's true.
Meaning, is this feeling, this worry, based on a tangible, objective reality happening right now? Or is it primarily a thought, a belief, a projection? If it's mostly in your thoughts or beliefs, then remember, there isn't just one truth. There are countless potential perspectives or truths depending on how you frame it.
Okay, so question the truth of the anxious thought. What's the second question?
The second question is, am I doing it wrong?
Am I doing life wrong? Am I messing up?
Yeah, that underlying feeling. And my consistent answer to that after countless sessions and coaching calls is always, no, you are doing it exactly right. Life, this human experience, it's like a school, and curriculum is inherently difficult sometimes. To believe you're fundamentally doing it wrong is simply not accurate.
That's a relief to hear.
It should be. You're doing it precisely right for your journey. All the troubles, the circumstances, the challenges you're facing, you are meant to experience them in some way. For your soul's growth, for learning, for evolution.
Shifting perspective from victim to learner.
Exactly. As your consciousness expands, you shift from that feeling of, this is happening to me, which is the victim stance, right? Why me? Why this illness? Why this job loss? To realizing, okay, maybe this is happening through me or for me, or even as me expressing a certain pattern to be healed.
That's a profound shift.
It is. It opens up your perspective immensely. Maybe there's a lesson here. Maybe it's karmic, if you resonate with that. Maybe it's meant to elevate your mind, your spirit, or even equip you to help someone else going through something similar later. For me, personally, looking back at my illness, the intense work stress, it was incredibly difficult. But I know, with certainty, I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with you today if everything hadn't happened exactly as it did. So now I feel immense gratitude for that entire journey, even the painful parts.
You're 49 now, you said. That means you dealt with this chronic pain and the associated challenges for almost 3 decades, starting around age 20. It sounds like the first 2 decades were maybe more about battling it, feeling the limitations, the doubt.
Very much so.
But in the last 10 years or so, you've really focused on transforming your thinking, your energy, creating that wholeness from the inside out. That must have been an incredibly challenging process, especially when dealing with chronic pain. It feels so debilitating, doesn't it? So limiting physically and emotionally.
Oh, it is profoundly limiting.
Yeah.
It can feel like you're living inside a cage sometimes, restricted in almost every movement, every plan. But honestly, no, I wouldn't trade the journey now because I understand, truly understand on a visceral level what people feel like when they wake up and just getting out of bed is an ordeal because their body hurts and then almost instantly their mind hurts too because of body pain.
That vicious cycle.
It's a brutal, vicious cycle. The inflammation in the mind often feeds the inflammation in the body and vice versa. They just work against each other. That chronic pain absolutely saps your energy, your vitality. And the physical condition itself can make you feel different, less than, unworthy. Then try navigating the world like that. Try dating, try building relationships, try pursuing dreams. It's an incredibly painful place to be, which is why I have such deep empathy for anyone stuck there because I know it intimately.
But you found a way through.
Yes, and that's the message of hope. There is true relief possible on the other side, primarily through understanding and leveraging that mind-body connection. When you finally internalize, okay, this isn't happening because I'm inherently flawed or a bad person, and crucially, there are things I can actively do to shift this pain, everything starts to change.
Taking back some control.
Exactly. Realizing the mind is miraculous, the body is miraculous in its capacity for healing, and that ultimately we are more than our physical forms, more than our jobs, our bank accounts, our diagnoses. There's something much bigger within us, that pure awareness that observes all of it.
That inner self, the observer.
Yes. We can all connect with that inner voice, the one that asks the questions, the part of us that doesn't feel the physical pain, the part that isn't self-conscious about how the body moves. That core part of us is love, is peace. When you can learn to tap into that. For me, it happened through some profound epiphanies, often during hypnosis or deep reflection. I would literally break down in tears of pure relief because I'd access this deep sense of peace, this connection to something beyond the pain.
And self-hypnosis helps access that state more readily.
It does. When you can consistently access that state, everything becomes easier. The pain itself can actually begin to dissipate.
Are there studies supporting this?
Absolutely. Numerous clinical studies show that interventions like hypnosis, meditation, and self-hypnosis focused on chronic pain can significantly reduce pain levels, sometimes even eliminate them, and often lessen the need for opioid medications.
How does that work physiologically?
It works partly by helping to alleviate the underlying inflammation, which is often driven or exacerbated by stress and mental states. But fundamentally, it works because your mind is interpreting the pain signals coming from your body. By accessing the subconscious, you can change how those signals are perceived and processed.
Like turning down the volume on the pain signal.
Exactly. And remember, our bodies have the most sophisticated pharmacy in the world built right in. We produce our own endogenous painkillers, anti-inflammatories, mood elevators. Pharmaceutical drugs often just enhance or block these natural chemicals. We have the power, through our mind and intention, to activate our own internal pharmacy.
Can you give an example of that internal pharmacy in action?
There's that incredible anecdote about the mountain climber who had a catastrophic fall, facing near certain death. In that moment, he reported feeling absolutely no pain, only this overwhelming sense of calmness and euphoria.
Oh.
His mind, likely anticipating the end, flooded his system with his own powerful drugs, maybe DMT, natural opioids, oxytocin, essentially preparing him for a painless death. He actually survived, remarkably, but it shows our incredible innate capacity to enter deep trance states that can completely override fear and physical pain.
And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about healing through energy.
Yes, his work emphasizes growing coherent energy within your body, within your energy centers or meridians, and how that coherence can lead to profound, sometimes seemingly miraculous healing. It all points back to the power within us. So for anyone listening who's suffering physically, mentally, emotionally, maybe from pain, heartbreak, deep unhappiness, please know there is genuine hope. Understanding and actively working with this mind-body connection can create pathways to healing you might not currently believe are possible.
That's incredibly hopeful, thank you. Now, when we're caught in those high-stress moments, feeling pain or anxiety, it can be really hard to tell the difference between our intuition guiding us and just plain anxiety running rampant. They can feel quite similar sometimes, especially in that, how do I get out of this panic mode? How can we distinguish between the two?
That's a really crucial distinction to make, especially when you're caught in that vicious cycle you described. The first step, again, is just that moment of self-compassion. Okay, listen, I'm not wrong for feeling this way. I'm not doing anything wrong. And then cultivating the belief, I can find a path forward. You have to consciously step out of the mental weeds for just a second and acknowledge, this is happening, it's okay, and now let's look for a way through.
Okay, acknowledge and accept first. Then how do you tell intuition from anxiety?
It often comes down to how and where you feel it in your body. Intuition usually feels expansive. It's often experienced as a deep sense of knowing, sometimes without a lot of logical thought attached to it. It just feels resonant, right? Like when you walk in through an apartment and just know it's the right one, or you meet someone and feel that immediate sense of rightness.
A gut feeling, but calm.
Yes, often calm, clear, expansive. Anxiety, on the other hand, typically feels constricting. You feel it primarily in your stomach or your chest, and then your mind starts racing. You get caught in obsessive thinking, trying to figure out every single possible angle, running through worst-case scenarios, or your internal algorithm runs wild, desperately trying to solve or control everything. But intuition, it's usually quieter, more of a felt sense, that expansive knowing.
Can you share an example of shifting from anxiety to a more intuitive or focused state?
Sure. The other day, I was doing my regular swim workout, and I found my mind wandering, starting to stress about my to-do list, things I hadn't finished, resources I felt I lacked, messages I needed to respond to.
Usual mental clutter.
Exactly. And I literally felt myself physically slowing down in the water. My stroke felt heavier. So I actually stood up in the middle of the pool and had that thought, okay, I need to practice what I preach here.
So you pause the anxiety loop.
I did. I consciously paused. And I intentionally shifted my focus. I started thinking about all the positive things already present in my life. My amazing 17-year-old son, my wonderful dog, the good things happening with my work and the community I'm building, my family connections, even just recalling a beautiful sunset I'd enjoyed recently, just flooding my mind with gratitude and positive outcomes. Then I started swimming again. And honestly, I swam more powerfully, felt stronger than I had just moments before. It was such a clear demonstration. When you deliberately focus on the positive, on the outcomes you do want, your body responds almost instantly. It's a direct, undeniable connection between focus and physical state.
That's such a compelling point about the body responding directly to our focus. It really reminds me of something powerful from my own life.
Yeah.
Back in my senior year of college football, it was 2005, second game of the season. I found out my father, who was traveling in New Zealand, had been in a serious car accident and was in a coma.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I was 22, stuck in Ohio, just overwhelmed with uncertainty, anxiety, fear, not knowing if my dad was even going to survive. It was terrifying. The very next day, playing in a game we ended up losing, literally the second to last play, I broke 3 ribs. And they were the exact same 3 ribs I'd broken the year before, an injury that had kept me out for months.
Wow. Talk about adding injury to emotional trauma.
Seriously.
Yeah.
The physical pain was excruciating, but it was compounded by the stress, the grief, the fear about my dad, and the immediate thought, my season is over. My college career is done. My sisters flew out to New Zealand, but the thought of making that 24-hour flight with broken ribs just felt impossible. I felt completely paralyzed. So what did you do?
During that first incredibly difficult week, with my dad in a coma on the other side of the world and me barely able to move from the pain, I made a conscious decision. I remember it clearly. I said to myself, okay, I am going to heal my body. I'm going to come back and play the rest of this season, whatever it takes. And I'm going to dedicate every practice, every play to my father. I'm going to do it in service of him, sending him love, sending him healing energy, sending him inspiration while he's lying there. That's incredibly powerful intention.
I still get chills thinking about setting that intention. And something shifted. Within just 2 weeks, my ribs had healed to the point where I could play. I wore a protective pad, obviously, but I could run, jump, catch, block, everything required. I only missed 2 games.
2 weeks. That's remarkable for broken ribs.
It felt miraculous. And every single day in practice, every game, I would tape my wrist and my cleats, writing for Dad and his name on them. I was consciously playing for something far bigger than myself, channeling all my energy, focus, and intention towards his healing and recovery.
Using that focus to transcend your own pain?
Exactly. Playing for that larger purpose, it truly felt like it accelerated my own healing, made me stronger, more resilient. And then, Thanksgiving week, a couple of months later, my father woke up from the coma.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. He had a very long, difficult recovery ahead of him and sadly passed away 17 years later. But that initial experience, waking up, was monumental. And for me, that whole period taught me such a powerful lesson about how to navigate profound pain and brokenness, both physical and spiritual, by focusing relentlessly on a mission, on service, on love. It gave me the energy to step outside my own understandable sadness, anxiety, and worry, and channel my attention toward healing and sending love through my actions, through how I showed up every single day. Despite the injury, despite the uncertainty, I ended up having the best season of my life.
What a story.
I could have easily gotten stuck in the why me? Why now? But making that conscious decision, creating new I am statements for myself. I am healing. I am strong. I am playing for my dad. Reprogramming myself to show up with gratitude and do my absolute best. It was utterly transformative. It was this intense 2 or 3 month journey that really helped me navigate overwhelming uncertainty at such a pivotal time.
Your story is such a beautiful, powerful illustration of having that mission, that vision driving you. Someone listening might hear that and think, well, my sadness feels too big. I could never do that. And see, right there, that thought itself is a mind trap, isn't it? Maybe a form of the backfire effect, protecting the identity of being overwhelmed.
That's a great point.
And it's valid to feel that way. But your story works. It resonates so powerfully because you had that clear mission, that compelling vision pulling you forward. If we don't consciously identify a greater purpose in our lives, something beyond just the day-to-day or accumulating stuff, we will stay stuck in ruts longer when challenges hit. We won't have that higher driving force, that why, to give us resilience. You need to know what you want, yes, but also identify that deeper driving force that will sustain you when things inevitably get tough.
And I really appreciate your earlier point about maybe having a season of life mission within that larger purpose. For me, back then, it was really focused on that 3-month football season. It wasn't, I have to be this strong forever. It was, okay, this season ends in 3 months. What can I achieve within this time frame? My mission right now is to heal, recover, be my best in practice, play my best in games, and finish this specific season as strongly as possible.
Setting a defined container for the effort.
Exactly. And I think sometimes having that defined timeline, understanding what you're committed to right now, even if it's not forever, can make seemingly impossible goals feel much more achievable. It breaks it down.
That's very wise. Makes it less overwhelming.
Okay, I have just a couple of final, really crucial questions for you. We talked about focus. What's the fundamental difference in the results we create when we focus primarily on the outcome we want versus focusing on the outcomes we don't want?
The fundamental difference is this. You will inevitably manifest more of whatever you consistently focus your energy and attention on, period.
Simple as that.
It really is. So if you constantly dwell on what's missing, what you fear might happen, what you explicitly don't want, guess what? You'll tend to attract more experiences that match that vibration, that focus.
Can you share that emergency room story again? You illustrated this so well.
Yes, that was a vivid personal lesson. I started having this severe stomach pain, and my mind immediately jumped to worst-case scenarios, fearing something was terribly wrong. I tried to ignore it for a bit, but eventually the pain got bad enough that I had to go to a crowded emergency room in Manhattan.
Not ideal.
Definitely not. And my memory immediately flashed back to a previous visit 2 years earlier where I'd been stuck there for 13 hours. So I arrived around 7 p.m., and my mind just started spiraling downwards. This is serious. I'm going to be here all night. Who's going to watch my dog? I have commitments tomorrow. I might need surgery. They'll never get to me in this chaos. I was completely fixated on everything I didn't want to happen.
And the stress probably made the pain worse.
Absolutely. The more I stressed, the more intense the pain felt. The triage nurse basically confirmed my fears, saying, yeah, expect to be here for hours. It's packed. The pain was debilitating. So there I was, lying on a gurney in a noisy, chaotic hallway, feeling miserable. And suddenly, I had that same thought. Wait a minute. I have to practice what I preach.
Time for a conscious shift.
Exactly. I asked myself, okay, what is the outcome I actually want? I want this pain to be gone. What does that feel like? Relief, joy, lightness, excitement to leave. What else? I want the doctor to come in and say, hey, there's actually no serious problem here. You're good to go. And crucially, I set a specific intention for timing. I want to be walking out of here feeling good by 9:30 p.m. That was just 2.5 hours from when I arrived.
Setting a clear, positive outcome.
Yes. Then the nurse came back and mentioned imaging would probably be an hour's wait. I focused my intention, no, something's going to happen, I'll be called immediately. And literally, maybe 15 minutes later, she was back calling my name for imaging.
Wow.
And as soon as she said, we're ready for your imaging, I felt my pain level drop noticeably, maybe from a 10 down to a 7. I thought, okay, we're making progress here.
The focus was already having an effect.
It felt like it. The imaging itself was quick. They told me results could take an hour or two. Again, I focused. Best result possible. Quick imaging, quick positive results. Within about 20 minutes, the doctor returned. But he said, okay, we have bad news. It looks like you have appendicitis.
Oh, no. That was definitely not the desired outcome.
Not at all. My immediate thought was appendicitis. That usually means emergency surgery, like right now.
Yeah.
I felt this moment of confusion, like how did I do all this focusing work and still end up with this difficult diagnosis?
Yeah, that could easily derail the positive focus.
It could have. But I consciously refused to go down that negative spiral. I doubled down on my original desired outcome. Nope. I am still walking out of here feeling ease and joy by 9:30 p.m. I just held that intention firmly.
What happened next?
Something quite unexpected. The surgeon actually came down to the ER to see me. And he said, listen, current practice is changing. We don't always rush into surgery for appendicitis anymore unless it looks like it's about to rupture. Yours doesn't look critical right now. We can give you strong antibiotics intravenously, and you can follow up with a surgeon as an outpatient if it flares up again.
Seriously?
I was stunned. I asked, so, I can leave? And they said, yeah, as soon as this IV bag of antibiotics is finished. She administered it, which took maybe 10 minutes. I got dressed, signed the discharge papers, walked out the front door of the ER, and checked my phone.
Don't tell me.
It was 9:32 p.m.
No way. That's incredible.
It really was. When you focus intently on the outcomes you want, you tend to get them, or something aligned with them. When you focus on what you don't want, you tend to get that too. And interestingly, my pain level, which antibiotics shouldn't have affected that quickly, had dropped from around a 10 down to maybe a 3 by the time I left. I practically skipped out of there. So yes, focusing on what you want genuinely changes your experience, your reality, even your perception of physical symptoms like pain.
That is a truly remarkable story. A direct, almost unbelievable illustration of the mind's power to shape our experience. Okay, final practical question. For those of us listening who want to consciously cultivate more abundance, whether that's financial, emotional, relational, what are some of your favorite affirmations that people can start integrating into their daily practice?
My favorite affirmations for abundance really revolve around tuning into that I am frequency we talked about.
Yeah.
That feeling of inherent wholeness, of creation, understanding that you aren't separate from abundance. You are the energy of abundance itself. You're not just a wave wanting abundance. You are the ocean of abundance.
So specific I am statements.
Yes. Things like, I am money. Or maybe, I am the energy of money. I am the frequency of abundance. Also, simply affirming, I am abundance itself. And a powerful supporting belief is, money flows to me easily and effortlessly.
Feeling the energy of it.
Exactly. Often, though, I find the most potent practice is simply repeating the mantra, I am. Just those 2 words. It feels like a direct communication with the universe, affirming your wholeness, your oneness, your completeness right now. I don't always need to add anything specific after it. I'll just sit quietly, maybe for a minute or 2, and just feel my energy expand with that simple I am. I actually used it before we started this deep dive today. I use it to prepare for almost everything. It seems to facilitate miraculous outcomes because when you stop feeling separate from what you desire, you naturally align with it. You become one with it.
And you mentioned using questions within affirmations.
Yes. That's a great way to bypass potential resistance from the critical mind. Instead of just stating flatly, I am worthy of money, which might trigger doubt.
Right, the inner voice saying, no, you're not.
Exactly. You can frame it as a question. How is it that I am so worthy of money? Or, how is it that I am actually so good at making money?
How does that help?
Because remember, the subconscious mind is designed to answer questions, not necessarily to contradict flat statements it doesn't yet fully believe. Its function is to find the answer. So when you ask, how am I so good at making money? It won't argue. It will start searching its database for evidence. It will bring up resourceful ideas, recall past successes, even small ones like that paper route you had when you were 10, and provide internal encouragement. It surfaces all the reasons why the statement could be true, reinforcing your capability and worthiness rather than just triggering resistance.
That's a really clever and practical way to work with the mind instead of fighting against it. Okay, shifting slightly, you also mentioned earlier 4 key signs or indicators that someone is living in a high vibrational state, radiating positive energy. What are those again?
Yes, I love these. They're simple, often intuitive ways to gauge your own energy or sense it in others. The first one is that animals seem to be drawn to you.
Animals.
Yeah, they approach you calmly, lovingly, maybe seek your attention or want to be petted. Like that example of a friend's dog that usually growls at strangers suddenly being super friendly and affectionate. Cats might rub against your legs. Animals just seem to respond positively to your energy field. Horses are apparently especially sensitive to this.
Okay, animals are drawn to you. What's number 2?
Number 2 is that friends and family members consistently seek out your advice. They value your perspective, they ask for your counsel, they turn to you when they need guidance or just someone to talk things through with.
Interesting. And number 3?
Number 3 is babies. Babies tend to stare at you. Yeah, not in a creepy way, obviously. But you might walk by, and a baby just gets captivated, seemingly staring right into your soul for an extended moment. With an adult, that might feel unsettling. But with a pure, innocent baby, it's often seen as an indicator of a clear, high-frequency, undeniable energy. They're just caught up in your aura, so to speak.
Fascinating. Okay, and the 4th sign?
The 4th indicator is simply that things generally seem to go your way. You experience more synchronicity, more flow, consistent luck. Not necessarily that every single thing is perfect every moment, but overall it genuinely feels like life tends to unfold positively for you. Things fall into place with more ease.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Why do you think animals and babies in particular are so attuned to this? And can you really fake it? Can charisma mask a negative internal state from them?
You absolutely cannot trick them, especially not animals like horses. They sense incongruence instantly. This ability to sense energy, it's part of our true essence, our innate wisdom. We all possess this deep capacity to perceive vibration and energy fields.
We just forget or ignore it.
Often, yes. That's why when I used to prepare for sessions involving deep trance or hypnosis work, I jokingly tell people beforehand, you might want to lock up your babies, your dogs, your cats. Because as soon as you drop into that deep theta state, that coherent energy field, they know. They sense it immediately. They're like, oh, hey, you're in that cool zone too. What are you doing? And they might try to jump on you or get your attention.
That's funny.
We all have this innate ability, but our conscious minds are often just too loud, too cluttered with analysis and doubt, so we second guess those subtle feelings. Yet, we are all feeling each other's energy constantly the moment we walk into a room, maybe even before. When you learn to quiet your own mind through practices like the self-hypnosis we did, you become much more attuned to sensing these vibrations accurately in yourself and others.
That really resonates with my own experience, actually. For the longest time, especially after college, I felt I lacked traditional smarts because my GPA was low. I had that dyslexia diagnosis. I felt pretty useless in the conventional sense. But playing sports my whole life, I started to realize I had developed a different kind of intelligence, understanding human dynamics. Teamwork, being coachable, coaching others, pushing through challenges, setting collective goals. I realized, okay, maybe I can't memorize historical dates easily, but when it comes to getting a group of people aligned and moving towards a shared objective, I actually thrive. I felt talented in that aspect of life.
Recognizing your unique strengths.
Exactly. But then, after my sports career ended, right around the 2007-2008 economic crash, I panicked. How am I going to make money? Everyone wants a resume, a degree, a GPA. I felt I had nothing impressive to offer on paper. I honestly didn't know if those soft skills from sports would translate.
That's a scary place to be.
It was terrifying. So I started just showing up at these early social media meetups that were happening. I went with absolutely zero agenda other than pure curiosity and genuine joy. I was just excited to be around people building new things online. I just meet people and ask questions like, wow, what you're building is so cool. How does that work? I was just genuinely fascinated.
Bringing positive energy.
Yeah. And by simply bringing that energy, that authentic curiosity and appreciation, people naturally wanted to help me. I started building connections, getting invited to the next event, getting introduced to people. I realized I couldn't offer hard coding skills or marketing expertise back then, but I could offer positive energy, passion, curiosity, a sense of wonder, and genuine appreciation for what others were doing and the challenges they'd overcome. And consistently, people responded to that feeling. It opened so many doors just because of the energy I brought.
It's entirely about how you make people feel. Often they don't even consciously know why they're drawn to you or want to help. They just feel good in your presence.
Exactly. So I just leaned into it. Anytime I started feeling self-conscious in those rooms, thinking I have nothing tangible to offer these brilliant people, I consciously remind myself, okay, but when I walk in, I can choose to stand taller. I can smile authentically. I can ask interested questions. I can bring genuine joy and curiosity to the conversations. For many years, that felt like my greatest skill, and honestly, maybe it still is. I don't always feel like the smartest person, but I know I can choose to bring positive energy, joy, and curiosity. And I truly believe people are starving for that authentic connection and positivity. So you have to look at what unique resources you can bring, how you can raise your own frequency to elevate the energy in any room to be of genuine service.
That's such an amazing and important point to highlight. It's not always about technical skill. It's often about the energy you embody.
What an incredibly insightful deep dive this has been today. We've covered so much ground, starting with that surprising idea that hypnosis is mind control, but crucially, it's your ability to control your own mind. Yeah.
The power is internal.
Right. And then unpacking those insidious mind traps,
Yeah.
the negativity bias, confirmation bias, the sunk cost fallacy, and that stubborn backfire effect, which so often block our path to the abundance and peace we seek.
Becoming aware of them is the first step to disarming them.
Absolutely. We've illuminated how truly understanding our programming and even finding ways to transform past pain into purpose, like in your story of mine, can profoundly reshape our lives. And we've learned the practical power of consciously crafting those I am affirmations and diligently, intentionally focusing on the outcomes we desire, not the ones we fear. It's a powerful reminder of the immense potential for personal change that resides within every single one of us.
It truly is. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'd love to leave you, our listener, with 3 core truths that I've come to hold as fundamental for my own journey and work.
Please do.
First, we are not defined by our pain or our body. We are so much greater than our pain and our body. Our physical form is temporary, it's a vehicle, but our true essence, our consciousness, transcends it. Second, all people, every single one of us, at our absolute core, the deepest need, the drive behind almost everything else we do in life, is love. That's our core need, our core desire, our core everything. We fundamentally yearn to feel loved and to love something or someone.
Love is the ultimate motivator.
I believe so.
Oh.
And third, our current external reality, the world we experience out there, is always shaped by our inner reality, our internal state, our beliefs and assumptions. And the most hopeful part, both of those realities, inner and outer, are mutable. They can be changed. We